Okay, so welcome to Brashana's Universe, and I feel like I can't really get this off of my mind at all. If you hear my son in the background, it is what it is. I'm living a mom life. It is kind of me healing out loud, me being nervous and a bit emotionally dysregulated based off of my experiences over the year of 2025 and moving into 2026. It has been a hard and very long road. I have my notes here, and I'm just going to try to take it as honest as possible. And I think what I'm going to name this is co parenting with a high conflict parent. And I'm hesitant to call this that in the first place. And the reason why specifically is because I am still struggling with the idea of being in a place of being victimized by my ex. I'm still coming to terms with all of the abuse that I experienced within that relationship. Still trying to find um, trying to find where I am accountable in a lot of ways, because I think something that I have said throughout our entire relationship is I've always seen him and I chose him anyway. And I think that that's very important because I never felt tricked. Mistreated, yes. Disrespected on a daily basis. Um, Gaslit on a daily basis. But do I feel like the wool was pulled over my eyes? Do I feel like I walked in with my eyes shut? Not particularly. So we're talking about co-parenting with a difficult parent, and it is someone that exhibits control, manipulation, a lack of empathy, and the need to win at all cost. If you feel like exhausted and you second guess what the hell did I just experience, and you're just trying to raise your child, and you find yourself kind of going in circles. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is like what it looks like. When you're dealing with a high conflict parent, cooperation is rarely a goal. That is not the goal of what is happening here. And I think I kind of want to have a caveat to that, because it where I when I started this journey, it was already high conflict, and I felt like having an issue victimizing myself or feeling like a victim. I felt that we participated in the toxicity of the situation. And so I felt genuinely as if that if there was a clear goal in place, that we would both kind of fall in line and we would figure it out. And these are this was the beginning of the journey of me basically figuring out that that is not what this person wants. Instead, there are constant conflicts over very small issues. Communication turns into blame and attack and victim playing, like this person just is a victim. And I like to pause there because I constantly say to my co parent, adults have choices. Nothing is happening to us. We're making choices. And so you could just choose to do something else. You could just make a choice that is something else. You don't really you're not really forced to be doing anything. And I'll give you an example. Like, um, he's chosen to like abandon myself, his ex-wife, and his son. And he's kind of like, oh well, I have no choice, and now my son can't come to my house. Your son can't come to your house because you moved in four strangers, three of them being children of a woman that you met 2 months ago. And so now it's a safety issue, and plus there's animals, and then our child is allergic, and it goes on and on and on. But basically, this co-parent is behaving like this wasn't a choice. This was something that they were forced to do, and now they're the victim of their own choices. It's a very, very strange paradigm to be in. Um, Also, the rules change depending on who benefits from these rule changes. I was always accused, and I think it's because I'm sensitive to being accused of this, but I was always accused by my ex of changing plans, of always changing things and doing things to him. And so, um, upon reflection, I always be thinking to myself, like, am I doing something to him? How could I be communicating better? What am I saying that is triggering him in some way? And how can I not say these things? And it took a long time of me accepting accountability and then the goalpost moving for me to realize that there was actually no goal in place. It's a bottomless pit. The goal doesn't exist. Um, and then they use children as leverage. That is the part that scares me the most. That is the part that makes me severely uncomfortable. I don't want my child to be involved in anything. And yes, it's about being child focused, but also I'm 35, but I remember what it's like to be a child and not have choices and have to do what the adults in your life tell you to do. And so that's a very scary place to be in. And so I always try to remain very cognizant of like, this kid has no choices. And so I must constantly be the advocate. And the way we talk about it, like in my personal parenting relationship, I always tell my son, like, I have choices. I have a car. I can drive. And, you know, you don't. So you're kind of the most important person here. We have to prioritize you, you know, because you have less choices. And I feel like children are the most oppressed class in America. Um, the other parent always trying to look like a good parent. And this kind of also goes with like them being high conflict and displaying like traits of the the narcissist word. I don't want to use it. I am not a professional. Um, I am not diagnosing anybody. I feel like from what I read, everybody has narcissistic traits. But if you meet certain criteria, then you are considered a narcissist. Now, that's not my cup of tea, child. I don't know. What I'm saying is like this is what women are experiencing, and I think it's coupled with the new understanding of what marriage can be, women discussing their hardships in these unions, women also being exposed for dealing with men that were terrible to other women only to find out that these men are just terrible men and they were going to be terrible to every woman and that you're not the exception to the rule. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. The hard truth, though, is that you can't co parent with people like this. You can do this whole song and dance of being in the family court sphere, right? And you can get the lawyer, you can talk the talk, walk the walk, and they're going to take your money. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, they went to school. I feel like sometimes, a lot of the times, they do their jobs, but the system is not hospitable for anyone. Nobody knows your child like you. And so, even if going to court is advantageous for one person over another person, it's still very inhospitable to kids, their psyches, their day to day activities. And so nobody wins. Nobody wins when the family feuds. Something that I struggle with the most is stop expecting accountability. It's really tough, but it's very much necessary. Your co parent is never going to be accountable for anything that they do. And as a matter of fact, if you find yourself in a space of you accepting accountability, it can actually make you bitter and resentful towards the co parent that is actually exhibiting toxic behavior because you're feeling like I'm left holding the emotional bag. I'm the one that is not really doing the things that I want to do. I am not living my best life. And here goes this person that's not investing into our kid. And I am trying different forms of communication. I'm trying to play by their rules, be professional, be nice, and it's not resulting in anything. And then the co-parent choosing not to also be accountable, that can make you bitter. And I just don't think that that should be an expectation. And if you want to be accountable, make sure it's kind of like in a parallel type of situation where you're like, oh, I could do this better within my household, my idea of parenting, and less of an expectation of the other parent. If you keep waiting for them to understand, you're going to get stuck in frustration. Um, this needs to be your mind shift. You're not parenting with them. It's just like I was just talking about parallel parenting. You're parenting alongside of them. And I think this is the part that I feel like nobody talks about on the internet, but I kind of want to talk about it right now. Um, can we start talking about some safety stuff? Because that's kind of what I'm experiencing. And I have found a deficit in the content area of parents discussing where they feel like the parallel parenting, um, where does safety fit in? I'll put my example. My son has a severe allergy, number one. And number two, there are now adults that are not well known, and that adult has children, and then that adult has fathers of their children, right? So then now there's these all these adults that are unknown, not just to the difficult or the parent that is in conflict, but they're attached to the parent that has conflict. So now there's a safety issue because who are all these people? And do they do bad things? Do they have substance abuse issues? Do they have domestic violence issues? Do they drive like a bat out of hell? Are they going to be transporting your child? I feel like nobody talks about that type of parallel parenting, and it's not. I don't really understand why it's not like at the top, because it's very child focused, and it's like, oh well, whatever, when they're over there, they're over there. Cool, love that for them, but are the kids safe? At the bottom line, do the kids have sufficient space and privacy? Are their needs met? Are their health needs met? I feel like nobody talks about that. So I feel like if you're feeling like, okay, parallel parenting is cool, but I am having safety concerns, I think that that's worth you speaking to the system about, but be clear and concise, because the system is not hospitable to anybody. Okay, no families at all. It is a system meant to make money, and that's it. And so you need to be explaining what your concerns are, and the concerns need to be child focused. Okay, so I kind of want to go over some communication rules that I agree with and that I disagree with. Um, Something here that I have written down is that co parenting with a toxic co parent, less is more. I don't agree with this. I really don't agree with this. I think that this puts you at a risk. It puts you at a risk, in my opinion, because I feel like toxic people, manipulative people live between the lines. They live in omission. They live in, well, technically that wasn't said. And then now they demand that everybody look at them like they were discussing this or having communication in good faith. And that's typically not the case. So I want to caveat and have an addition to that. Less is more, but the things that need to be clear. Hey, just to be clear, you don't want to speak to me anymore because we are unable to agree on insert disagreement here. Hi, I just want to be clear. I was trying to make a schedule because the court order is not being followed. Is this something you would like to discuss further? Yes or no? Now, that protects you. I feel like a lot of people are not discussing that. That protects you, and it does protect your sanity, and it does, in my opinion, slow, well, it does speed up. It speeds up your process in court, because now you don't have to get something continued, because you're like, no, I asked them. This was from their mouths. They did not want to discuss this. They did not want to resolve this. And so whatever resolution or outcome comes from that, seeing that that person cannot reasonably communicate, is very necessary. So I don't believe less is more in that regard. This is where I find it very, very important, and where I have experienced it not being that way on the other end. Keep the communication brief, factual, and child focused. Brief is the word. There is very few things that I will start a conversation about. I will start a conversation about health. I will start a conversation about childcare, and that could be anything from like food and extracurriculars or things like that, right? I will start a conversation about scheduling. But outside of that, I am thumbs upping, I am okaying, that sounds good. Thank you for the information. That is how brief I am with it. And I'm only participating in child focused conversations. Now, when you look at these conversations, they look hella fragmented. They look like a fragment, okay? When you look at the conversations that I'm having, because of my other co parent, they are not child focused. And that's not like an accusation, it's just an observation, right? So where I'm kind of like, hey, the comfort of the child, what are we doing? The child is old enough to talk. So these are all the things that we're going to be doing in order to get on the same page. That co-parent is like, no, I want this child to fit into the life I curated for myself. That's not child focus. You need to inquire about what that means. Now, this is something that I struggle with. Don't engage in baiting, insults, or rewriting history. I struggle with this a lot because my co parent is really dishonest. I am not saying that as a dig, it is an observation where I will be like, okay, we were both in a court hearing and we were looking to scheduling. I wanted to do 50-50, but then because of the occupancy of your unit and the pets that you had in your unit and our son's severe allergy, you weren't able to get overnights. Then the court has a template of Saturday and a weekday, right? All of this I was there for because it was being explained to me. Then the co-parent was asked, hey, what works for you? That co-parent then gave days that works for them. And then that same co-parent told me today that I didn't choose this schedule. This was forced upon me, and I am a victim of what is happening to me. Whereas I was in that courtroom, and it's just very, very strange. Very strange. But the rewriting of history is very jarring for me. It's very confusing to me. Also, because typically it would be something that I'm asking you straight up about. So it would be, hey, can I get some pickup and drop off times? I don't really need pickup and drop off times. Our order says what pickup and drop off times should be, but you're not adhering or observing the order. So what do you propose so that we can make an alternate schedule? And then the person goes off on the tangent. But then you still don't know what time they're coming on Wednesday. Very jarring, very, very disorienting. You don't know up from down. You're in the upside down world. Um, Protect your child without bad mouthing. I have a special situation with my specific son. So there is quite a lot that my son is unaware of. My son does not know most of it, right? The agreements that my son and I have as mother and son is that I will not let him get blindsided. So, if something is going on, i.e., a court date is coming up and that court date means something, i.e., maybe you have to talk to court officials, I'll say, hey, when we go to court on this day, you may have to talk to somebody, you may not have to talk to them, and this is roughly what they may ask you. You don't have to think about it too much. Just tell the truth. It's literally fine. Or I'll be like, hey, I know that we put a break on introductions, but in February, the judge might find it appropriate for you to spend a bit of time with your dad and their spouse, and like, you know, it'll be okay, and I think you're going to be treated well, and I think things are going to go well. Now it all depends on how your child reacts to that, but that's what I'm talking about. Protect your child, but keep them informed. The last thing you want to do is have, especially if you're the primary parent, is to stress this child out to where now you're out of work, because that's my situation, right? Because the child has freaked out, the child has gone to guidance counselor at school, now you have to pick the child up, the child is now at risk, their mental health is a mess, all because they weren't prepared. You don't have to have really deep conversations. Like I said, hey, you might have to talk to somebody in court. Don't even really think about it. Answer their questions, answer it honestly. Oh, you might have to, like, spend some time with your dad and his spouse. The major thing is that you're going to be safe. Make sure you're safe. And if you're not, you can call me. Keep the kids informed. Keep it moving. They don't need to know very much more. For kids, the only thing that they really, really, really value is consistency. And so if you're just showing up, doing what you're supposed to do, the same every time, being caring, being thoughtful, in my opinion, it should just, the kids should notice, right? And children are children. And if you could take a step back and understand that they are the only people in the situation that do not have autonomy, that should help you feel more empathetic towards them, right? Let's close by reclaiming our power. If you co-parent with somebody that loves chaos, control, lives between the lines, loves to parent, co-parent by omission, veiled threats, manipulation, lies, all of the things, just remember you're healing. You don't have to convince them that you're healing. You went by detaching, stabilizing. I started doing this because I felt very destabilized today with a discussion that I had with my co-parent. And just focus on the things that you can control. And I'm not necessarily even talking about your kid, because you need to be kid focused, right? You need to be controlling every little thing of your kid's life. You need to be trying to control yourself. You need to be figuring out the things that you enjoy doing, figuring out what life looks like outside of this co-parenting relationship. Because if co-parenting is done right, or if you do all the things and you graduate the court system, right, and you get your little order, and that's what it's going to be for the next few years, that means you get to really put some roots down and to prioritize what it is that you find to be important. So that's a great way to like reclaim your power. And I also think it's very important to understand that the reason why we're experiencing a lot of this is a compounded issue. We are having older women talk to younger women about how advantageous marriage is not to women. Marriage is advantageous to men. Women talking to other women about experiencing their abusive marriages, their mentally abusive marriages, feeling like they gave more than they received. They wish they would have left sooner. Now there's a male loneliness epidemic, and everybody's wondering where that came from. I think it came from entitled men. And I think a lot of this is around patriarchy and entitlement. I happen to like people, humanity, if you will. I feel that the way that men are socialized kind of makes it a little easy for women to want to engage with misandry. I would implore you not to. I would implore you to take it as a case by case basis. I ain't telling you to trust no man. It's not why I'm telling you. Man will make you suffer. Okay? So I'm not really telling you to trust a man. What I'm saying is use your discernment. And if you like this video, please feel free to DM me. I want to start talking to more moms about what we're experiencing. I'd like to have a support group. No, I don't want your money at all. And I don't want you to take money from other people, but I do want there to be a community of us, because I feel like that's what it's lacking. When you come online, the ecosystem is telling you about how to reclaim your life after narcissism, women saying that men are so terrible and you should leave them, and divorce glow ups. You see you see these women that are doing childcare plans, and and then they're charging you, which they should for their time, but it is such a big monstrous ecosystem that moms get lost in it. And if a mom is lost in the system, that means her child is lost. And that means that the mom's trajectory, her life, what she could have been, is no longer. And so I think what's important is to make a community of women, people that can discuss this, put some names to some experiences, not be charging each other money, but to share resources if you are so inclined, so that it's state by state, that people can start talking about this. And if you are the toxic parent watching this, comment below. What are your motives? I'm sure that you can be anonymous. Tell us why you do the things you do, and what are you hoping to get out of your situation with your child's mother. What are you hoping to get out of rearing your children? What do you believe your children rearing should look like? I guess I'm just really curious to know also how you feel victimized in this situation, and not in a facetious way, like I'm genuinely trying to understand. And with that being said, my name is Brishana, and thank you so much for listening to the first podcast of the Brishana universe.